go away. I'll relish any time you'll stay with me, my dear.
Peanut, peanut butter.
And jelly.
Peanut, peanut butter.
And jelly.
Peanut, peanut butter.
Get in my belly.
Turn that radio dial.
What you talking about, Wood?
It's time for the most Gen X podcast there is.
Real tomato ketchup?
Not even close, bud.
You found it.
Never been so happy in my whole life.
It's just Jeff and the dazzlingly uncool.
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
And now, it's just Jeff.
So, what's the worst grade you ever made?
I once made a D in French, largely because I made a 9 on a major test.
Okay, so then what we're saying is the 9 is the worst grade you ever made.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so...
But I actually did, I mean, it translated to a D for that 6 weeks, but I think I brought it back up to a B by the end of the
Which
semester.
means for the remainder of the French period of the school year,
Yes.
you did well.
I mean, I had to redeem myself, yeah.
What would you think mine would be? Probably something involving Mr. Head.
Well, I remember he gave you a 10 on a test
He did
because you
give me a
put your
10.
name at the top and you spelled it right. It was a
I
spelling
did.
test.
It wasn't a spelling test.
Oh,
But
I thought you turned it in blank, and it was a vocabulary test.
And I turned it in with just my name.
Yeah.
And he gave me a 10. Not my lowest.
Really? Well, you made a 0.
Not my lowest.
You've made a negative.
Yes. So I was going to bring Hicks in for this one, but, you know, I'm going to tell it.
Okay.
It was North Harris Community College. Hicks and I both went. We were both in the speech class together. And, you know, we'd go occasionally. You know, we'd skip occasionally, okay? Mm-hmm. And we knew that we had demonstrative speeches coming up. We didn't know when ours was or whatnot, and we missed a couple of classes and came in, and we were told, all right, Jeff, your speech is Tuesday, you know, whatever. So Hicks is like, what are you going to do? I'm like, peanut butter sandwich. I mean, I'll just drive in, pick up some bread, some peanut butter, some jelly. Dude, if I can't talk about peanut butter for 20 minutes, nobody can. So we get into class, and I get up there with my bread, my peanut butter, and my jelly, and a plastic knife.
Uh-huh.
And the looks on the people's faces had me very concerned.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of looking, and Hicks, what's going on? The teacher actually has lasers going through me at this point. And I get up there, and I'm like, something is not right. Something's not right. So I pull out the bread, and I mean, I'm stumped here. They've stumped me. And I'm like, oh my God. So Hicks is like, what is going on? So you take the bread, you spread the peanut butter, and everyone is just looking at me like, are you really doing this? Are you really doing this? And I'm like, oh God, I'm okay. Then you spread the jelly, and everyone's just looking at me, and I panic. So I start saying, you want to make sure that you see your knife goes through and you have the nice even grooves on the other side. Something. I think I go 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I go 2 minutes. And we missed the day that the teacher said, don't come up here and do how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, no.
So the looks of the people just told me something was wrong. And it was.
Yeah, you think?
So when I get my grade back, it's an F minus. I made an F minus. And I was like, what the hell is an F minus? And Hicks put it best. The F is you failed, and the minus is I don't like you. So, you know, I was so embarrassed after the speech, and just so I'm walking out of there with a bag of bread, peanut butter, and jelly, and the jelly ended up looking like a Jackson Pollock painting against the school. I kind of got a little mad and threw it, and But needless to say, that's my lowest grade, and I still passed the class because I always felt if you give me a topic that I have time to prepare,
Yeah.
I can give a speech, right?
Right.
And I still think that had that not happened and people were like, "Oh, this is going to be fun watching this," I'd have been able to do the sandwich.
Probably so. What are the odds of that?
But I would imagine pretty good any speech teachers are going to be like, at least wow me. Don't do. What are the odds that we weren't there that day?
Well, what are the odds that she said, "Don't get up here and make a peanut butter sandwich," and you independently thought to yourself, "Well, I'll just get up there and make a peanut butter sandwich."
I thought, how tough could it be?
Right, but I mean, is that like a known faux pas in the like the speech world, like where they say like you're not getting up here and just doing a talk about making a peanut butter sandwich?
Well, you did get the fact that I wasn't there that day.
Yeah.
So
you
I
missed
didn't
that.
rub it in her face with.
No,
also,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what she thought was happening. But what are the odds that that would have been what she chose as like this is the absolute no-no, and then
Well-
you independently thought, hey, I know what I could do.
You know, I think that it's probably a worldwide thing. You know, speech class. I'm not giving you a topic. I'm letting you choose a topic on which to give us a demonstrative speech. Get creative. Wow me. Wow. So in other words, she was just saying, guys, anyone can get up here and do peanut butter sandwich. Wow me. Well,
What if you'd have got up there and done a fried bologna sandwich?
well. You know what? I think
Was it
she would
the
have been more upset.
sandwich?
No,
Is
it's
the
peanut butter.
sandwich the faux pas or the peanut butter the faux pas?
Hey, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter.
Peanut butter on my chocolate.
What?
Now that's a good question because had I gotten up there and made a bologna sandwich, she may have thought I was putting it into her face even more.
That's
like,
true.
okay, you said no peanut butter, here's a bologna. And I don't know if you can get a lower grade than an F minus, and I'll never know because. But that's my peanut butter and jelly story. One of about 7 that I have, but that's the cleanest one.
That's pretty good. I've actually got a peanut butter and jelly story going on right now.
You do. Tell people, please.
Well-
that is ingenious.
So a shout back out to the Quarantina.
Yeah.
Because our friend Larry Brantley, who we interviewed on a special episode a while back, and who has his own video series on Facebook Live of the Quarantina, where he covers issues involving mixology, introduced me to a drink that's changed my life, and in the process introduced me to Ruby Port.
Yeah.
I never had that in my liquor cabinet before. But at the risk of sounding totally pedestrian in the eyes of a mixologist, I looked over and noticed that I had a bottle of Screwball whiskey, which is a peanut butter whiskey. I'm a big fan of peanut butter flavored things.
I think. Yeah.
And
go
I
ahead.
had this notion, like, what if I did like a 2-to-1 sort of ratio mixture of peanut butter whiskey and a little bit of Ruby Port? Would it sort of be like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich kind of cocktail?
Well, Ruby Port is it's sweet.
Right.
It's sweet. So when you mentioned that, I was like, I mean, it's worth a try. I mean, what?
Right. Well, I'm going to say 2 things. Mm-hmm. First of all, visually stunning. And because at first, like the peanut butter whiskey is more of like a thick liqueur. And so when I first poured the port on top, there was a layer.
Really?
And it looked really nice. So that would be a nice way to deliver it to the table, and then you
Yes.
stir it up. And then I'm just going to say, when I took my first sip, I was wowed enough that I was like, Jeff, you got to try this.
And living by the COVID-19 rules, I did drink from the other side of the
You did,
cup, which is
yeah.
a small glass.
We
So the
social
odds
distance,
that was not good social
The rules are
distancing.
Governor Abbott said we cannot put our lips on the same part of a glass, and we have to maintain at least a cocktail glass distance between
Yes.
where we take a sip.
I would say that's good. But, you know, the alcohol
Inside,
might have killed
we're
it, too.
indoors. That's true.
Alcohol
Yeah,
might have killed
right.
it.
That's true.
But I tasted it, and it's delicious. Now, if I'm not mistaken, as far as Screwball peanut butter whiskey. I might have introduced it to you because some people told me about it at work, and I said, and I had what was a peanut butter old fashioned.
And that was delightful. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm not going to tell too much about it but I bought some peanut butter whiskey on the way home from work from a little store. Specs didn't even have it yet. And these cherries were $20 a bottle. Believe me, Luxardo cherries, most people out there know them if they drink whiskey or whatnot. And just made a peanut butter old fashioned. And I think after my first sip, it didn't take 2 seconds to call you and say, Rocky, boy, do I have something for you.
And then you made me one. You came the last time we were together here.
Yeah. And I was like, don't make one until I get there.
Yes.
And it was
fantastic. Now, there's another peanut butter topic that we could touch on because when you tasted my drink today, you made a comment that it reminded you of a particular peanut butter and jelly combination that probably carries some controversy with it. There are some people who think it's the greatest thing ever, who are peanut butter and jelly aficionados, and other people who like a good PB&J who would say that's absolute garbage and blasphemy. And that is what?
Goobers,
the mixture
that has
peanut butter and grape jelly,
and unspreadable.
You can't spread it. It clumps.
But getting a spoonful, delightful, and that is exactly what that drink tasted like. And I'm having a whiskey and water right now, and I'm wondering if that will mix well for my second, third, and fourth drink tonight. And I'm thinking I'm safe.
The only problem is I'm not sure we have enough screwball left to support that. We may need to make a trip to the stove.
Or there could be some fights going on later. There could be some fights. And I think the final peanut butter story that I have that's, again, clean, doesn't involve nudity, is when we were in Portland and you introduced me to a peanut butter milk stout, which was one of my favorites that I've ever had. But Taylor ordered literally what was called a peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
And it was half peanut butter milk stout, and then it was almost like a half.
It was raspberry lambic.
And now, what is lambic?
Lambic is it's a carbonated fruit. I think they sort of describe it as like a fruit beer type of thing, but it's not really. I don't know exactly what it is, but
it wasn't good.
You felt like it had too much jelly.
I think he did too.
It offset the peanut butter of the stout, the peanut butter stout, which was called what, by the way?
Belching Beaver.
Belching Beaver.
Peanut butter milk stout.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one I shouldn't be telling. But I know Taylor didn't like it either because it was absolutely sweet. And people, when they hear peanut butter whiskey or peanut butter beer, they're thinking that sounds ridiculous. But both of them, the peanut butter is a hint in the back.
Yeah.
But that lambic was in your face.
Yeah.
And port would be in your face if you just took a little shot of straight port. But that, my friend, it's
solid.
Golden. Yeah, I give that an F+.
I like it.
Which is really a high grade if you think about
that's pretty
my
good.
scholastic career.
That's good. I appreciate that. The next trial will be whether do you prefer the creamy or the chunky version?
I'm a creamy guy. Hence,
I've heard that a lot about you.
hence the other peanut butter stories.
So that last segment kind of went in a different direction than I had thought. We were first talking about kind of school and getting a bad grade and, what's the worst grade you ever got. But it quickly evolved or devolved, I'm going to say evolved, into a discussion about possibly one of the world's greatest foods, which is peanut butter.
Let's first look at the elephant in the room. We could have gone on about an hour and a half or 2 hour segment just on my grapes. Right.
That's true.
And I just felt that maybe the diversion would be peanut butter, right?
Yeah.
So, peanut butter is one of God's gifts. Let's be honest, right?
It is one of God's gifts. It was certainly a go-to when we were kids, but you and I talk about this a lot. I mean, we still that's one of our go-tos now. In fact, you just showed me a bowl that you just kind of cleaned out of peanut butter you were eating with Ritz crackers.
Sometimes I take peanut butter and jelly, I mix it together, and then just kind of either spread it on a Ritz or dip a Ritz in it. And, can you go wrong? No.
That's homemade goobers.
It's homemade goobers, and it's peanut butter.
Follow me on Pinterest for more great recipes.
What's Pinterest?
But, yeah, so I think one of the most horrible things to have would be a peanut allergy.
So, do you remember anyone growing up that had a peanut allergy?
Not really. And I'm thinking I might have overspoken. Cancer sucks.
Let's be,
right.
for the lightheartedness of this podcast, yes.
Right. I wouldn't wish lupus on anyone. But, a peanut allergy, just because it sort of deprives you of one of the joys of life. But the other thing about it is it deprives everybody around you of one of the joys of life.
Right. You're absolutely right. Kyle is a teacher, my wife, and literally they can't have peanut butter and jelly in her classroom.
Or in the school. But pre-COVID, when you used to get snacks on a plane, sometimes they'd say, well, we're sorry, we're not going to be able to sell, we're not going to be able to hand out peanuts because we have somebody on board that has a peanut allergy. And you're thinking to yourself, first of all, sucks for me because I want some peanuts. But then you're thinking to yourself, how horrible to go through life where somebody opening a pack of peanuts in row, seat 7A could threaten the life of somebody in 23C.
It literally makes no sense, but I can't even imagine that dust, peanut dust.
Right. And it's I'm no expert on it, but I do think that it's become more of a phenomenon, especially in terms of just how severe it can be. Because if you think about just everywhere we went as kids, there was peanut butter, and everywhere. I don't recall anybody having a life-threatening reaction to it. And you'd think just by the law of averages we would have seen that. So I do think that it has developed into something over time. Right. Way to go, millennials.
Way to go, millennials.
Right.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I love peanut butter so much, I would carry an EpiPen just so that I could eat peanut butter. I would say to the person next to me on the plane, I'm the person that they talked about. Get your peanuts. Here's this. I'm going to eat some peanuts. And just...
I believe that about you. Because I remember that time we went to Padre when we were in high school, and you actually got a tattoo of George Washington Carver.
The guy invented peanut butter.
Well, he invented so many things that utilize the peanut, right? Think about that. We always learned about George Washington Carver in school, but we never learned about peanut allergies. The peanut was front and center, probably on the cover of Time magazine when Jimmy Carter became president, because he was a peanut farmer, right?
He was.
So now all those reputations are tarnished, not necessarily by the political viewpoints, but because of
I've got
the fact that so many people are deathly allergic.
What's allergic. If I went to a tattoo artist and I said, I would like you to put a picture of our first president on my forearm, would at that point he become a George Washington Carver?
He would be. He would be a George Washington inker, anyway.
So Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that.
If you went up to one of the roadside tree stump chainsaw art things and you asked him to make a statue of our country's first president, he would then become a George Washington Carver.
But see, there again, he would become a George Washington sculptor. I think what you and I are getting at is there's a good chance when I was in school, I was carving on the desks, right?
Sure.
But I wasn't carving like J.S. Hart, whoever. I was typing J.S. Hart PB, and that's peanut butter, right? And so if I were ever to draw a picture of our first president, I then would be a George Washington Carver who loves George Washington Carver.
But what I think you'd have been more likely to actually be carving George Washington Carver because of your love of peanuts. And so then you would become like somebody that says, is there an ATM machine? Which they've basically said, is there an automatic teller machine So you would have been a George Washington Carver.
You just blew my mind.
This goes down the rabbit hole pretty deep. But anyway, thank you to George Washington Carver, somebody who discovered so many uses for peanuts. And now I will pause for the more you know public service announcement music. And now on with the podcast.
And I would like to thank the millennials for this whole cancel culture. Now we can't even learn about George Washington Carver because of these peanut allergies.
Maybe, although I suspect we still include George Washington Carver. I think we call him GWC.
In
the
me.
curriculum.
You down with GWC?
You're down with
you know
GWC.
me. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the tattoo I got, GWC. So the allergies, they really don't make sense because, growing up, I mean, people might be allergic to, the seasons. It's like you had ragweed season and
hay fever.
Hay
Seasonal
fever, allergies. Yes, but none of them seem life-threatening. In fact, I would say when we were growing up, and I didn't know anyone that had this, but it seemed like the life-threatening, the biggest threat for life-threatening, whatever what's it called when if you eat a peanut? What is that? Anyway, would be like a bee sting. Right?
Yeah, like anaphylaxis you're talking about.
Yeah, you'd have a major reaction. Right.
Yeah, like a bee sting or...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose some people probably had it to shellfish. You just didn't hear about it as much as you hear about it now. And
there's a good chance that my speech teacher might have had a peanut allergy, hence the reason she did not want anyone doing that.
That might be. You might have put her life in jeopardy by bringing that peanut butter into the classroom.
So instead of the F because the speech was no good and the minus is because I don't like you, the F was your speech wasn't any good and the minus is you damn near killed me.
You tried to kill me.
Hey.
I think she was being generous with the F minus, if you want to know the truth.
She probably was. But you know what, though? When I walked out of there, I didn't know I was being serious when I said, well, I killed that crowd.
The other, yeah, that's right. The other thing I noticed is in your story, you were so pissed off you threw the jelly against the wall, but you weren't mad enough. You weren't going to waste the peanut butter.
Oh, come on.
That was a calculated decision there.
A, it was probably in a plastic tube. B, you can have peanut butter without jelly, but you're not going to eat jelly without peanut butter, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, this has been quite the discussion. We have learned a little bit about you. We've learned a little bit about each other. A lot that we already knew, just about our love for peanut butter. And we've learned a little bit about life-threatening allergies. And so I think we've sort of kind of paid our dues to society.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
You know, if you're not careful, as in the words of somebody whose name shall no longer be mentioned, if you're not careful, you might learn something.
Hey.
Let's get this underway.
It's time for closing thoughts with Jeff. And now, here's Jeff.
Contrary to popular belief, George Washington Carver, while being a great inventor discovering over 300 uses for peanuts, did not invent peanut butter. I would like to tell you who did, but researching the few facts I just provided gave me a headache from too much reading. But that didn't keep my mind from racing independently into the invention of peanut butter. I mean, how hard can it be? It's basically pureed peanuts with a little oil, right? Maybe add a little sugar, a pinch of salt. So for the sake of science, I decided to mix all of these together in ways they might have in the 1800s and create peanut butter. In the end, it was inedible, and I'm glad I chose how to make a PB&J sandwich rather than how to make peanut butter for my demonstration speech. I'm sure either would have resulted in an F-, but the way it worked out, at least I walked away with my street cred. Until next time, I wasn't real strong in science either.
Thank you for listening to the Just Jeff and the Dazzlingly Uncool podcast. Check back every Thursday for new episodes. If there's a topic you think we should discuss on the podcast, leave us a comment or a message and we'll do our best to get to it. Check us out on Facebook and join our group called Growing Up 70s and 80s Texas Style. Didn't grow up in the 70s or the 80s? No problem. Didn't grow up in Texas? No problem. We still want you in the group and as part of the discussion. Hey, do you think you yourself may be dazzlingly uncool? Well, if you found your way to our podcast, chances are pretty good, or at least that you will be one day. Wear that title with pride. To find out more, check out www.rockysealmusic.com.
Good Lord.